Welcome to your Rally Point podcast. Organizations need a reason to exist, and people need a reason to care, but none of it matters if you can't connect the two. This podcast is where nonprofits, advocacy groups, and mission-driven organizations discover their rallying point. It is your go-to resource for mobilizing support, building authentic connections, and driving real results. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's rally together to create the impact you're meant to make. This is your Rally Point podcast, brought to you by rallycorp.com.
Hey there, James, back with your Rally Point podcast with my favorite co-host. His name is Jack. Hi, Jack.
Hey, James. How's it going?
It is going.
Good. Yeah, beautiful sunny day here in Seattle, and I'm ready to do another one of our podcasts. I really enjoy these. These are fun.
Yeah, they are fun. And it is a little bit gloomy here in San Diego. In fact, Jackie, yesterday I was sitting here and I felt the whole house move. It was the biggest earthquake that I had felt in a while.
Yeah.
I saw the windows bowing a bit, and I'm like, whoa, check that out. But 6.2 is what the first reports were. I think it's calmed down. I think it's 5 now, 5 something. They've adjusted their numbers. I don't know how they do that. But anyway, So yeah, we got our earthquake here yesterday. So I'm holding on for the big one, man.
You know, we're all in what they call the ring of fire here, and especially up here in Seattle. And we've been through a few of those. They are unnerving because your entire world isn't in its right place.
Yeah,
you know,
it's kind of
the stable things aren't stable. That should be. So
yes, Jack. Well, we lived in Texas, my wife and I, before moving to San Diego for a number of years. And we had a couple of tornadoes come through our neighborhood. One actually took off part of our roof. The thing about tornadoes, though, is you can see them coming, at least once the siren goes off. You have a little bit of a warning. We had a storm shelter, so that was nice. But with the tornado, I felt like it was localized, like I could see it coming and I could get out of the way or get underground.
Yeah.
But when the entire ground is shaking, what are you supposed to do?
Right.
Yeah. So
yeah, Here in Seattle, the move is to everybody tends to run outside.
Yeah.
So during an earthquake, we start to see all of our neighbors as we all start to run outside. I don't know what that natural reaction is to get out from under things.
Yeah.
It's a natural human reaction. But yeah, it is crazy because everything is not in its right place.
Well, don't do it until after today's episode, please.
That's right.
But if you Google. Yeah, but if you Google the wild animal park, the safari park in San Diego, actually has videos of the elephants gathering, backing up to each other. They do a defensive circle, they call it, or I think that's what they call it. Anyway, they bring the elephants come together, protect the young. So they had caught that on video with the earthquake, and we watched it last night. It was really cool. It was just amazing to see how nature reacts in that way as everybody.
Yeah.
Elephants kind of. Anyway, so it's just a cool thing to watch. All right, Jack. So we're back with this episode today. You and I were talking about some of the pain that we, one of the questions we ask our customers and potential customers is, why mobile? Why now? What's driving this conversation? And then we just let the conversation unfold, right? Why are they taking busy time of their day to talk to the likes of you and me? Something's driving that conversation. What is that and why now? And it's amazing. Like we're hearing, there's a lot of trepidation in the market. Obviously, there's tariffs, there's things going on, stuff that we've been seeing for 2 or 3 years through various news that we're tracking, the reporting of revenues going down and down and down. So this isn't new necessarily, but it builds, and it can be quite concerning when these folks that work these nonprofits are saying, hey, the grant money's drying up. There's now changes to with tariffs and impact. And obviously, any economic news affects it. One of the lag indicators is obviously giving. It affects it if the individuals want to give even. So the question that I often get asked is, we need to solve for engagement. We need to fix a leaky bucket of people kind of coming in, and then we're losing more people on our list than we're getting in. We have donor turnover. We have a founder retiring, and a lot of key relationships go with that founder. So lots of things driving conversations. We get into a lot of pain. I'm curious, Jack, what have you heard lately that's driving some of these conversations around people inquiring about mobile as a solution?
Well, I think that I guess the big elephant in the room, we were talking about elephants, it's the loss of funding. And this is, and I'm not going down to some political channel here at all. But for years, nonprofits have been, a lot of them have been highly dependent upon grant money. And whether you have a good grant writer, or whether you get either $5,000 from Petco Foundation or something larger from the government, something like that, there's been a lot of weight placed on that kind of revenue for nonprofits. And when that goes away, leaves a pretty big hole. And
Yep.
so then you turn to, okay, well, we got to fire up fundraising. Well, traditional styles of email fundraising or ads, I mean, that gets expensive, right? So where do you turn? And so I think, and you posted on LinkedIn if people want to go look at that, but I think that for the right mobile solution like Rally, it's time for mobile. And that just basically comes down to, how do you reach people? Like, this
Yeah.
whole thing isn't all that complicated. I lost some funding. I got to close the gap. And how do I do that? I'm going to go do some fundraising. What tools do I now have to do that? So email, fine. But we're finding, and you can just see by our recent success, we're finding that a mobile first approach and reaching people right where they communicate every hour here
Yeah.
is really important. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, we're hearing kind of that kind of mantra that in general, other funding is really hitting the brakes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And it's true. It's not just for nonprofits and grants. The same thing happens in the software world with startups, right? We raise, for example, Rally's bootstrapped. So we really live on what we kill and eat, right? We don't have a big coffers of investors hanging out, kind of telling us what to do with our technology, our product. And one of the reasons that is, Jack, is I've worked in startups and worlds like that where we raise tens of millions of dollars. When you get an organization or an investor, group of investors to write you a big fat check, you get really inefficient really quick.
Yes.
And I'm not knocking anybody. I think it's one way to do it. But what I have found, I remember one startup we closed a $14 million round. We had $14 million to spend, and they wanted us to spend it like a year and a half because they were going to go out and raise a $25 million round. But we had to, we were blowing money like crazy. Nobody was stopping to say, hey, is this a good idea? Does this create value? Is this the best way to build this thing? We were just spending money to spend money to get that next tranche of investment, right? So I think a lot of times that can happen with the nonprofit with the grant money. You get a big surge of cash, a couple $100,000, $1 million. You got a lot of inefficiencies. No one stops to say, hey, how do we make this self-sustaining? What do we need to do internally? I say nobody, that's not fair. Of course somebody does that. But the ability to do that and to say, hey, we're going to use this money to get to the next level. While getting to the next level, let's think about how we can diversify our source of funding, because this check may not be here next year. So what are we going to do when it goes away besides lay everybody off?
Yeah, and that is really, that's the great point. That's the point here, is that I mean, we all like to think we're most efficient, right, in our businesses and nonprofits and things like that. But money can hide a lot of things. We talk about this in other spaces and other channels like politics, right, and political messaging, which is kind of something we don't do. But the example applies here in that if you're getting a lot of funding and a lot of grants and things, that can tend to hide your deficiencies in your boots on the ground, grassroots type fundraising and the tools that you use and all of that. And it's funny, we'll talk to tier one, we'll talk to somebody that's a 25 million revenue nonprofit, and it's just amazing. Like, you're like, wow, how did you get here? Because sometimes they're really inefficient, like, and you're like, wow, you're reasonably successful, and then you find out that they're really good at grants. So grants can obfuscate, they can hide, different things can hide, hide your other problems.
Yeah, you're inefficient. Well, I'll talk about my own nonprofit and what we experienced. So, and the numbers are small compared to some of the clients we work with, but I think it was $250,000 in a grant we got one year, which was great. It was beautiful. It went to programs and services. It was what we needed. It was exactly what we needed at the time, and I'm so grateful for it. So I would not have taken the money. That was great. But what we found is that we had lost sight over the next several months as we were executing on that grant, because there were specific requirements that came with that grant we had to deliver on. We became so focused operationalizing that grant that we had taken our eyes off the ball of what we would previously referred to as donor acquisition cost, like DAC, like how much does it cost to acquire a donor? And then what is a lifetime value of a donor? Like, we had kind of just started to figure some of those pieces out because we kind of had to. But this grant allowed us to spend money in some very inefficient ways to kind of surcharge our organization and get some services delivered. So as the grant started winding down, we realized, oh, wow, we really do need to get back to the basics of where do we find our most optimal donors? How do we reach them in a reliable way? And then what do we need to do to optimize, for lack of a better word, I'm going to say conversion. How do I convert a stranger or a fan or a follower to take some action, ideally a donation, right?
Mhm.
So to the degree that I understand that, and Google Grants is a good example of this as well. Google Grants, as you know, will fund the spending of money on Google. And you could spend a lot of money on Google very inefficiently. The key is to work with a partner that can help you identify the most efficient ways to do that so that you can turn that gift or that grant, that chunk of money, into ongoing reoccurring donors through that first touch and then converting those people to that first gift. So I'm going to contend, Jack, what we found is that our ability to reach out and touch someone again and again and again and drive them back to our website, back to our events, back to our mission, back to our videos, whatever, get them back. But the degree that we were able to do that successfully meant that we were able to obviously extend the mission of beyond that grant year, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about. I call those funnels. I don't know, Jack, if there's a better name for it, but we'll talk about funnels today in some ways that maybe help.
Yeah. That's a good way to reference it. That image of bringing people in and then engaging them tighter and tighter.
Exactly.
You brought up a good point. The cost of acquiring a donor, there's an agency called R and then plus
Great
R.
report.
Yeah. And they have a report and they made some general assumptions of the cost of acquiring a donor, what I would call a gold donor, like a top type of donor. It's $5,200 in the traditional way. So you invite them to a gala and you do this and you call them or whatever you might do. And it's really many touches and around $50, let's say. So it's funny when I hear those numbers because a text message is like 5 cents, So I'm like, well, if I send that person, if we're engaging and they get into our program and I send them 10 messages, that's 50 cents. So I can only imagine the effort outside of what we do here at Rally, the text messaging and the cost and the super high return on investment and how efficient it is. I'm only imagining like, where's that $50 come from?
Yeah.
And so for us, wow, I'd love that number because we're here to really blow that away.
Yeah, 100%.
And with the funnel and the kind of things that we're going to be talking about, it reduces your cost of acquiring a donor dramatically. And you'll see, or we'll talk about that here a little bit, is the automation of it all. So, we take care of engaging them where they engage most frequently with their phones and keeping costs low. And through automation, it addresses the fact that nonprofits are constantly resource challenged. And so I'm so happy that we're addressing all these things. Like in the last, 12 months, we're knocking these things off. Right. And now we're talking emotion and automation and this funnel stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. We have an intern for a while or marketing coordinator doing social media. So social media was a viable channel, but that takes time and energy. Right. Yeah. So it's really kind of hard for us to say, oh, well, we get X dollars off of Instagram or off of Facebook or whatever, TikTok, whatever your platforms you're on. But that's what I would call top of funnel, like brand awareness. Like that's just simply getting us into the consciousness and staying there, but not when I post on Facebook, at least for us at our nonprofit, I'm not necessarily expecting to turn that. It'd be nice if I post into a click into a dollar, but that's more top of funnel, like I would say brand or mission awareness, like that. Okay, this is a problem that exists. This is an opportunity you have to help serve this problem or this opportunity that we create for you through philanthropy, what have you. But it's basically just raising awareness. So that would be like top of funnel stuff, right? Now, if I can get someone onto my website to subscribe to a newsletter or to fill out an interest form or to download a resource, something that's a low lift, low ask, I'm not necessarily at that point. Maybe I'm asking for a donation, but if I ask for a donation, I'm getting tens of dollars, not hundreds of dollars, most likely, right? This is very early in our relationship. Yeah. So the goal there is to move people from that top of funnel, if you would, the tofu, they call it, top of funnel, to get people to move to the next step down. And that is to give me their email and permission to communicate with them, right? And this is where I see a lot of organizations get it wrong, Jack, is they get email and permission to communicate with them, but then they're dependent on email, which is great, but that's one channel, one method. And the question is if I can get permission for email, can't I quickly also just allow a checkbox for text messaging while I'm at it? Because now I'm 2 channels. And not only that, email and text messaging, but I can also, if I have your cell phone, I could call you, I could drop a voicemail. So now it's 3 channels, right? 4 if you count a call separate from a voicemail, right? So
there's no reason not to.
There's no reason not to. So the idea is, how do I move something from general awareness of This is a challenge that we're solving as an organization. This is how you can get involved. Give us your email to sign up, join our newsletter, download this thingamabob, whatever. But in that moment, if I can capture your contact details and get permission to communicate, it doesn't have to be required. Don't make it required. Just give them a choice. Like, if you would give us your cell phone, we can send this to your phone, right? So the idea, Jack, is to move people to that logical next step in that funnel and to move them down closer and closer and closer to decision. Because it's not necessarily that I land on your website from an Instagram post or that I'm looking at a video on TikTok and I'm ready to do anything. But now that I'm aware that you exist, what can I do? And if I do anything, can we make it multi-channel, multi-touch? Not just one channel called email, right?
Yeah. When we talk about surrounding them, we talk about love a lot here in the nonprofit space.
That's right.
But what we're talking about here is providing people with the opportunity to engage with your nonprofit in a pushy way.
Yeah.
Like, hey, if you give us your phone number, we're going to share with you all of the great things that we're doing so you can be involved. You can feel good about what you're doing with us and we can partner up together. These messages I think gone are the days of this kind of pushy fundraising message. We're like you said, we're bringing people into the ideas to bring people into and be connected with your nonprofit in a way that is just, again, we go back to this human-centered thing. And so surrounding them with multi-channel contact, right? Texting, email, here's what's up via social media and things like that. But texting is a really critical component when you reach a certain stage where you want to take that next step with them. It's like, okay, they're a Facebook follower. I got them in my email. They've donated 11 months ago. I'm sending them a text.
Yeah. And it's funny, Jack, you know me, I'm a direct mail guy too. I love direct mail.
Yeah.
So, we got social, we got direct mail, we got email, we got voicemail, phone calls, and text messages.
Yeah, voicemail, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like multi-channel, multi-touch. But if I'm gonna go through the expense of mailing a direct mail piece, now a lot of times in our nonprofit, we'll do canvassing of areas, different neighborhoods to see kind of how it does. But if I can get net new people to my website from a direct mail piece, an informational piece, like a little 3x5 card, by way of a QR code or by them, typing in a tiny URL, then I can get them on my website. And if I know they're there, then I can move them into consent, right?
Yeah.
Capture their cell phone and get them to one button opt in. So the idea is, how do I leverage these multi-channels, channel just means that I'm communicating. But good marketing, good messaging really comes down to just making sure the message is relevant and that you're trying multiple things to get people to act in the moment. But I would contend that most people, when they check their mail, even their email, but just their U.S. postal mail, their mailbox, probably have their phone in their pocket, right? So if we can incorporate the phone as a tool with those different touch points to get them to quickly act or to scan or zap or tap or whatever, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I'll let you know how it goes in a few weeks, Jack, but I just printed 150 letters to go out in a mailer to a neighborhood that we're targeting with little stickers on them that are NFC enabled. It didn't cost a few cents per sticker, but I've got a sticker that says tap here to learn more. What I'm banking on is people are curious what that means. Imagine getting a piece of paper in the mail. It's actually cardstock, but a little cardstock in the mail with a sticker that says tap here, and there's a picture of a phone and a little radar coming off the top of it, and it's just tap to learn more. And I'm banking that people will do that.
I mean, I love the guerrilla marketing nature
of
what we do here, and we call them the rally tap buttons. For those of you, you turn NFC on, it's in your options menu on your phone, and then it's just like paying at the supermarket with your phone. Right. I love it. And I've always had this idea where I could just virally go put tap buttons everywhere. But I think also, nefarious, you got to be careful because nefarious people might do it too. But I love the idea of that curiosity, and it's just another way. People may not scan QR codes. There might be people that don't know how to do that with their phone. They may not type a keyword love to 24365. They may not text that, but they might tap though. And maybe the younger demographic is the one that does that. But again, it
was going to cost us, I think, $1.50 per mailer, right? So it wasn't very expensive to do a mailing piece. We've got some economies of scale. So the mail itself wasn't very expensive. And I thought, hey, we spend, another 10 or 15 cents to put a sticker on it. just to see. I'm an experimentation. I like to experiment, right? But just to see how many more impressions we get off that campaign piece.
Sure.
Because when they tap that, we'll know the IP address for who tapped it. And we know they have to opt in for us to get their contact information. But we're going to know that that was tapped 10 times, 100 times, 20 times, 30 times. So the question to my board becomes, hey, I just spent X dollars on a mailer. I want to be able to come back to you next month and ask for Y dollars, which is going to be significant. Let me just do a mini little experiment to see if I can increase the number of taps, which is really just site impressions, right? So I've done mailers before, and it was like, hey, go to our www.wecare.com or whatever, right? Some URL, right? I made that up, but some URL. And they're like, great, but how do I know anybody did it? I don't, right? So then I'm like, okay, let's go to www.wecare.com/promo1, whatever. And then I'm like, okay, 17 people hit promo 1. So now I get some. Now, Jack, I know not only that they tapped, but the IP address of the phones that tapped. And when they tap on their phone, I get the added benefit of pop up, one button opt in. Because they're on their phone. You tap from your phone. And I know you're
going to move them into a discussion with you.
Now we're moving them into opt in, right? So one button opt-in from your phone allows me to send you the thing, in this case, it's a video, to your phone where you probably want to share it with your friends. And then I'm going to create that viral nature where it now goes back out to your friends, to the contacts in your phone. Right? I can't contact
you know what's so surprising is, what would your estimation be? Do you think 70% of nonprofits have face-to-face interactions with their donors at some point? Maybe.
That's a good question on the percentage. I'd have to think about it, but I know in our case, just about all of our more significant donor relationships do at some point transpire into a conversation. If not on the phone, in person for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So QR codes, Rally Tap, these things are really applicable. It's not this. I want people to understand, like, this isn't a flash in the pan. This is not some gimmicky thing.
No.
Like, when you show up to an event and you say, hey, everybody, around the room, you'll see these white Rally Tap buttons, or these white buttons with our logo on. Feel free to scan those, and we're gonna surprise you. Like, that's a real thing. Peel, stick, do that.
Yeah.
And it's time to think outside the box, And
exactly. And the key is, like, volunteer check-in. We use them at our church for child check-in, even registration at the child booth, the welcome booth, what have you. So, but tap to connect, tap to scan in, right? So the idea is, if you got people walking through foot traffic, just make it easy for people to take out their phone and make action in that moment. And I think you've said this well, Jack, texting or mobile's for the moment, right?
Right.
Like, you're in the moment. How do I reduce the barrier for you to act? If I meet you and I'm like, hey, what do you do? I'm James. Tell me about your company. It's www.whatever.com, and we do X. Great. Think they're going to pull out their phone and search it? Or no, they're not. But if on the back of my phone I could pull out, well, hey, actually tap this, check it out, and they tap it and it plays a video, boom, now they're engaged, right? Mm-hmm. So whether you're meeting strangers on the street, you're trying to get them involved with what you're doing, or you're reducing the friction. From my vantage point, if I'm sending out mailers anyway, that just becomes one more funnel touch point to leverage an NFC tag on a mailer sheet. I was going to do it anyway. Listen, I'm not getting any younger, so I feel like the only resource that I have that's not really renewable is my time. So to me, it's less about the couple of cents it's going to cost me to do this, as it is, what am I going to do to justify to the board next month or next quarter when I want to ask for 10 times that much money to spend on a mailer? How do I justify, because I've made a good use of these 3 months to run this little experiment, right?
Yeah, and that's and having the data to understand, and that's one thing that people should know about us, is we can drown you in the data. So we talk about attribution, right? Attribution is a big marketing word, right? But with what we do, we can attribute someone's, like, if they get a message that has specific link just for them, which was what we do. We know if that person clicked on that link, and then through automation and integration, we know that if they donated or not.
Yeah.
Simple.
I love
it.
Right? Yeah.
And I think a lot of the nonprofits just throw an email out there with a standard link in it, and they're just,
we had to back it out a little bit, because we were telling customers, and it's still an offer, but I was like, if you don't get 15% conversion, like if 15 out of 100 people don't click on this thing, I'll just give you $250. I guarantee it. And the customers are like, dude, you're getting 30-40%, like 15%. You need to make that 60%. So I'm like, oh, I'll just give you $250. But here's the thing. I had to know because results is one of our core values as a company.
Yes.
People first, relationship, results. There's only 3 of them, right? And I think they build on each other. It's people first, human centered, and they don't like that. I forgot my camera must be on to do these little symbols when I do that. So it's people first, and then it's power of a relationship. Relationship comes down to communications. We don't have much of a relationship if we're not communicating. And if all I ever do is ask you for money, we definitely don't have much of a relationship, right?
Correct.
So how do I create these very logical, systematic touch points with your audience or your donors or your supporters, your volunteers, whoever, right? How do I create these very easy methods to reach out, get consent in a human-centered way, build on that relationship, to move to the final request, and that is either donate or volunteer or whatever, sign a petition, whatever it is, right? And that last piece is results. So for us to be a company that's results, I have to be able to prove it to you, and that's why we track every piece of data you can imagine.
You brought up, and I think we're getting close on time here, but you brought up something that's really critical in that the old way of doing this whole texting thing used to be just, I got a list, I got a set of phone numbers, blah, 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 And you noticed in this call, we haven't even really talked about the actual, hey, send a text out.
Text message. That's right.
We're talking about all of the tools and all of the things that nonprofits need to do to lower the barriers to engage with people, to have a conversation with people. And that it's really important that you surround them with abilities, with opportunities to talk to you as a nonprofit. Right. And we just mentioned Rally Tap, and we mentioned direct mail, and we mentioned, QR codes in different marketing materials and all of that. And that's really what this boils down to. I found by working with you over the last year is this whole equation with all of the nonprofits we work with is really the software speaks for itself, and the new capabilities that we have coming, right? With kind of these campaigns, and like if they don't open a text message within 3 days, we'll send them another one. These kinds of things, kind of drip technology.
Drip, that sequencing,
That's only 50% of the equation. The other one is using the tools to actually reach people, engage people, and get them to come in and be involved in like text communication.
Yeah.
And
we
really,
have
that's really the hack here,
That's right. Yeah, we call it, as you know, Jack, we call it the triple C, the 3 C's of success for our customers. And we divide our customers into groups of successful groups and not successful. I hate to be that binary about it, but we found about, so I'll just be frank, right? We call it the rule of thirds. A third of our customers are going to be wildly successful beyond even our own imagination. Yeah. A third are going to be moderately successful, and a third are going to just not really do anything with the technology. And that's heartbreaking, but that's just the way it is. It's like, it's just 3 out of 10 nonprofits to sign up with us just don't use the tool and then wonder why it doesn't work, right? And again, they're not mad. Some of them have stayed around for years, but across the board, all 3 of those buckets we put people in. What we look for are the 3 C's or the triple C's, and that is how many contacts did you start with and how many net new contacts did we have sign up, all right? Some customers are content with 10, add 10 and I'm happy. Some are like, no, we need 10,000 a day, whatever, right? That's absurd, but so there are different scales of what that would look like. But the number of net new subscribers, if I can say, hey, we're moving 10 people a week from social media into your text subscriber follower list. Some nonprofits are just elated with that. Others would think that's a dismal failure, right? So the first C is contacts. The second one is conversations. That's where we get down to the send button. That's where you actually send the message, create the campaign, text message, voicemail, whatever, hit send. But we have customers that are successful on our platform, Jack, that only do the sending, the conversational piece, like 3 or 4 times a year. Yeah. That's it. Like they're only sending like 3 or 4 messages a year. What they really base success on is how many net new subscribers do they move from social, from email, from direct mail, from whatever, their other channels. How many did we move in to get opt-in permission? Like that's it. Just did I get 10 more people this month or this week or this day to opt into text messaging? Because if I don't have that, I got nothing. I don't have permission to even text the other. So contacts, conversations, and then conversions. And the conversions is where I see customers really get it right, that are tracking how many link clicks, how many taps, how many times can I turn a mailer for $1.50 into a actionable, they took out their phone and they tapped the thing, right? Anyway, it's just fun technologies. It's not a one size fits all, but what we are advocating is simply take action in the moment, tap, text, scan, click, make it easy for people to take out their phone from direct mail, from email, from social, and obviously from text messaging, and then set up some sequences where that's automated. We don't have another thing to work on.
Right. Yeah. Perfect.
So my favorite sequence we just built for a client, just simply thank somebody 1 year after they gave their first donation to say, hey, 1 year ago today, you became a donor. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect.
And all we want is like 3 or 4 of those people out of 10 to say, you know what, thank you, and I'll donate again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a really great program. I love that.
Yeah, if 3 or 4 people donate a second time, that's a win.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes these conversations are not easy for nonprofits. And when we talk about like, where are the holes? Where are the gaps? And I think the challenge, like for us, is to ask those nonprofits, like, what tools are you using? Rally, for example, and what we do. But I mean, what are you doing right now? When we talked at the beginning of the call, things are challenging right now for a lot of nonprofits. And so are you, not speaking to you, James, but the nonprofits, are you as a nonprofit doing the kinds of things that you need to be doing to make sure your foundation is solid going forward? I think Rally, obviously we're showing this. I mean, from our success and the number of nonprofits coming to us and things, that we're showing that we're definitely a value, to add that channel.
Just got to make it easy on people. And that's what I'm learning now. I'm a technical guy, so this stuff comes very fluid and easy for me. But now the challenge is, the opportunity is, for my relationship for you as our customer, how do I make it easy on you so you just turnkey? How do you sign up, and then there's your pick your funnel, pick your journey, pick your path, right?
Yeah.
And if I can just kind of preload those for you and set them up, that's a win. So that's what we're working on now.
So look for that from us.
Yeah, look for it. We'll make it easy on you. All right, Jack. Yeah. Well, hey, you know what? I always enjoy our conversations. Folks can text coach to 24365. Stop by rallycorp.com and mash that orange button. They'll get coaching tips and tricks throughout the week. We're going to relaunch here in a couple of weeks our webinar series and get back into doing regular lives and webinars. So sign up on our newsletter if you want to participate in those. The next one will be on Let's Tap Technology, so it's going to be exciting. And I will update people in that webinar as to how my little experiment with my direct mails went.
Yeah, right on.
Could be a total.
If you're a nonprofit out there,
it could be a lot of fun. We'll see.
Yeah. So if you're a nonprofit out there and you're watching this, let's go.
Let's do it.
Let's go. Let's go. No more sitting around.
That's right.
Come on. We're here to help you. Let's go.
We are here to help. We'll even do the heavy lifting for you.
You bet.
All right, bud. Good seeing you, Jack. Thanks again for your time.
Thanks, James.
See you.
See ya.